Imagine opening your computer to get work done and realizing the operating system is now acting more like an advertising platform than a tool you control. Right now, well over 1.4 billion people rely on Windows, and more than half of them are running Windows 11. Yet in just the past few months, something has started to break beneath the surface. For the first time in around 3 decades, Windows 11's market share is shrinking, not just once, but again and again, slipping from a high point in the mid-50% range to just above 50%. This is not a random dip. It is a reversal at the exact moment Microsoft expected Windows 11 to lock in its dominance, and behind those percentages is a story far darker than a simple preference for older software. It is about forced obsolescence, aggressive telemetry, and an operating system that now seems to serve attention harvesting and data collection first and use second. By the end of this video, you will see exactly why Windows 11 is collapsing, why millions of users are refusing to move onto it, and why this matters even if you have never used a Windows device in your life. When Microsoft launched Windows 11 on October 5, 2021, the company framed it as the biggest redesign in over a decade. The marketing was sleek: centered taskbar, rounded corners, pastel colors, and promises of better gaming performance, tighter security, and seamless productivity. Microsoft's official announcement highlighted new features like snap layouts for multitasking, direct storage for faster game loading, and deeper integration with Microsoft Teams and OneDrive. The pitch was simple: Windows 11 would be faster, more secure, and more intuitive than Windows 10. It would bring desktop computing into the modern era, with Android app support through the Microsoft Store and AI-powered tools like Windows Copilot to help users navigate tasks more efficiently. Most importantly, Microsoft emphasized security. Windows 11 would require TPM 2.0, a hardware security chip, along with secure boot and modern processors to protect users from firmware-level attacks, ransomware, and data breaches. The company argued that these requirements were not arbitrary. They were necessary to build a foundation for the next generation of computing, where every device could be trusted by default. For casual users, Windows 11 promised simplicity. For power users, it promised control. And for enterprise customers, it promised a secure, manageable platform that would last for years. But as everyday users, system administrators, and journalists started living with Windows 11, a very different picture emerged. One of the most visible and frustrating changes was not about fresh innovation at all, but about turning core parts of the interface into real estate for promotions. In the Start menu, Microsoft began testing what it openly called app recommendations, which in practice meant ads for third-party apps alongside your own programs. These recommendations pointed to the Microsoft Store and highlighted software you never asked for, right in the same space you use to launch your daily tools. On top of that, File Explorer started showing OneDrive and Microsoft 365 prompts, encouraging you to back up to the cloud or subscribe to services, even when you were just trying to manage local files. The lock screen pushed tips, news, and promotional content tied to Microsoft services. Even the Settings app began surfacing messages nudging you to try Edge, use Bing as your search engine, or sign in with a Microsoft account for a so-called better experience. For many users, the line between a personal operating system and an ad-supported platform suddenly became very blurry. These changes are not just cosmetic annoyances. They say a lot about how Microsoft now thinks about Windows itself. Instead of being a neutral foundation you own, Windows 11 increasingly behaves like a funnel, constantly directing you towards certain browsers, search engines, cloud storage, and subscriptions. XDA and other tech outlets have criticized these Start menu ads as representing everything that people dislike about modern Windows because they hijack the core navigation experience to push products. And while Microsoft insists these are simple recommendations to help users discover useful apps and services, they are turned on by default, and the toggles to control them are buried deep inside multiple menus. PocketLint, for example, documented a long list of settings a user has to switch off across different sections of Windows 11 just to make the system feel close to ad-free again. That is not an accident. It is a deliberate design that assumes your attention is available unless you actively fight to reclaim it. At the same time, Windows 11 is collecting more data about how you use your device than any previous version. Telemetry, the automated reporting of diagnostic and usage information, is enabled by default on all editions of Windows 11. Even if you set telemetry to the lowest level allowed on Home or Pro editions, the system still sends data to Microsoft about system configuration, app usage patterns, performance, and certain browsing or search activities. Security researchers and privacy-focused writers have analyzed Windows 11 network traffic and shown that the operating system contacts multiple Microsoft and even third-party servers during installation and regular use, transmitting identifiers and analytics that can be tied back to a device or user profile. Microsoft maintains that this data is anonymized or pseudonymized and used to improve stability, security, and user experience. But the sheer breadth of data collection, combined with integrations into Microsoft Account, Edge, and cloud services, raises concerns about how much the company can infer about your habits over time. Many people assume this does not matter because they feel they have nothing to hide. But that assumption breaks down quickly once you think beyond simple browsing history. Consider a person working remotely for a small business. They log into line of business apps, manage customer records, and open internal documents from their Windows 11 machine every day. Telemetry about app usage, performance issues, and error reports can reveal which tools the company relies on, what regions it serves, and when usage spikes. If that information is ever cross-referenced or misused, it could expose commercial patterns competitors would love to know. Or think about a student or activist in a country with growing digital surveillance. They may rely on encrypted messengers and VPNs, but the operating system itself is still reporting device identifiers and related data back to servers they do not control. Even if that data is not read by an oppressive government today, long-term, retention and changing political context can transform harmless telemetry into a risk. On top of the ads and telemetry, there is the hardware wall that Microsoft has built around Windows 11. The official requirements call for TPM 2.0, secure boot, and relatively modern processors, such as 8th generation Intel or 2nd generation AMD Ryzen chips. In late 2024, Microsoft doubled down, publicly reiterating that a TPM 2.0 compatible CPU is non-negotiable for Windows 11 and for future versions of Windows. The argument is that this is essential for building a secure chain of trust from firmware to the operating system, helping to block rootkits and sophisticated malware. In theory, this makes sense, and security experts agree that hardware-backed protections are powerful tools. In practice, though, these requirements instantly turn countless perfectly functional machines into second-class citizens. Security enthusiasts and tinkerers have shown repeatedly that Windows 11 can run on older hardware quite well once the installer checks are bypassed. It might not meet Microsoft's ideal security profile, but it still performs everyday tasks smoothly. Despite this, Microsoft warns that unsupported systems may not receive updates and may show desktop watermarks or other friction. That message leaves ordinary users in a bind. Either they buy new hardware earlier than they plan, pay for extended updates on Windows 10, or run an unsupported configuration, knowing that Microsoft does not really stand behind it. PC Mag and other outlets have pointed out that this stance nudges people toward hardware upgrades framed as a security necessity, even though the difference in real-world risk for many home users is not always explained in clear, concrete terms. What looks like a technical requirement from the outside often feels like forced obsolescence when it hits your budget. Ad clutter and hardware walls might be tolerable if the core user experience was undeniably better, but even there, Windows 11 has stumbled. The redesigned taskbar removed long-standing features that power users and professionals relied on, such as the ability to move the taskbar to different edges of the screen, freely resize it, or ungroup icons in a detailed way. The Verge highlighted how the new taskbar frustrated users by dropping basic capabilities that had existed for years in the name of a cleaner, more modern look. The right-click menu was simplified, hiding important functions behind an extra step, which slowed down workflows for anyone who manages many files or uses advanced tools regularly. These changes might seem small in isolation, but they add friction to almost every interaction you have with the system. Performance has also been a sore point. Users in Microsoft's own community forums have documented situations where Windows 11 feels slower than Windows 10 on the same hardware, especially when opening File Explorer or handling large folders. Tech sites have reported that Microsoft is still working on baffling performance regressions, such as scenarios where basic file operations or context menus take noticeably longer compared to older versions. While updates have brought improvements, the fact that a supposedly modern, optimized operating system can feel laggier than its predecessor undermines the promise that all the sacrifices, from ads to hardware requirements, are in service of a clearly better experience. And then there is the update system, which has its own long history of breaking trust. Windows 11 continues the pattern of aggressive updates that can reboot machines at inconvenient times. Users report that even when they choose options like update and shut down, the system sometimes restarts, applies updates, and then sits at a lock screen instead of turning off completely. This is not just a minor annoyance when you're trying to leave for the day. For people who manage limited power, travel frequently, or run critical tasks overnight, unexpected restarts and incomplete shutdowns can mean lost work, drained batteries, and missed deadlines. Community threads, including those in sysadmin circles, are filled with complaints about devices rebooting outside configured active hours or ignoring update pauses. When an operating system repeatedly behaves in ways that contradict explicit user choices, it erodes confidence that the platform respects your control at all. Put all of this together, and a pattern appears. Windows 11 is marketed as a security-forward, productivity-friendly, AI-enhanced evolution of Windows. In reality, for many users, it feels like a system that demands newer hardware, broadcasts more data back to Microsoft, and fills core surfaces with promotions, while offering a user experience that is at best slightly improved and at worst more constrained and slower. The market share slowdown and recent declines make sense in that context. As Windows 10 approaches the end of its free support period, many people are hesitating instead of rushing to upgrade. Some are exploring extended security updates to stay on Windows 10 a little longer. Others are looking seriously at alternative platforms or planning to stretch existing devices as far as they can. So what can you actually do? If you are using Windows 11, there are steps you can take to push back against the most intrusive parts of this design. Guides from privacy experts recommend going into Settings, then Privacy and Security, and turning off every toggle related to advertising ID, suggested content, and tailored experiences. For people who are more privacy conscious, using local accounts where possible, choosing non-Microsoft browsers and search engines, and being selective about which cloud services to link into the system can significantly limit how integrated your digital life becomes with Microsoft's data pipelines. If you are still on Windows 10, you have options as well. Microsoft has announced paid extended security updates to keep Windows 10 patched beyond its official end of support date, which can buy time while you evaluate hardware and OS choices. That might be more appealing than rushing into Windows 11 on a schedule that does not fit your budget or comfort level. Your operating system does not just work for you anymore, it increasingly works for the company behind it. Windows 11 was supposed to be a clear step forward in speed, security, and usability. Instead, for many people, it has become a symbol of how large tech firms push hardware upgrades, collect more data, and monetize attention through the very tools you rely on to get things done. The collapse we are seeing in Windows 11's momentum is not a mystery. It is a reaction to years of decisions that treated users as a resource to be managed, rather than people to be served. So here's your choice. Option 1. If you are on Windows 11, go through your privacy, personalization, and advertising settings and turn off everything you do not genuinely need. Take back as much control as the platform still allows. Option 2. Share this investigation with someone you know who uses Windows, especially if they have just accepted the ads, the telemetry, and the hardware pressure as the new normal. Then comment on which option you chose, because that small act of accountability might be the first step toward demanding operating systems that truly put users first. Leave a like, circulate this video within your network, and subscribe to ensure you remain ahead of every major tech transformation.